with us today is Karen Marie Quiles Alvarez, and I'm super excited because I get to share a little bit about her amazing new book that she just published. And let me start with letting you know that Karen is an accomplished Marine combat veteran who continues to serve as an ambassador, volunteer, and advocate for several veteran service organizations invested in wellness of veterans and their families. She is an author and continues to expand her education with a degree in mind body medicine and is a certified cognitive behavioral coach, integrative nutrition health coach, warrior goddess training facilitator, Reiki Master, and currently working on trauma conscious yoga teacher training with connected warriors. Okay, she sounds amazing already, right? So, welcome, Karen. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Adriana.
I'm excited. I love your book. I think it's amazing, and I want you to share with the audience how you actually got involved with publishing this book. And I want to mention to everybody who's listening, Karen is also one of the co-authors for our book Latinas 100, and she's going to share a little bit about that. So yeah, so tell us a little bit about your book and how you got involved in publishing.
Well, I always thought that I needed to write a book because people kept telling me that I needed to write a book about my experiences. But I never really got a chance to get around that because I thought it was just so overwhelming. At the time, I was very overwhelmed dealing with a lot of post-traumatic syndromes. And I tried to sit down and put on paper how I was feeling, but just the thought of having to write about my experiences was very overwhelming, and I just kept getting a lot of anxiety behind that. So I was introduced to the Latinas 100 through Elise, a fellow veteran that I met through the Mission Continues.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to meet you, and you were a catalyst to this venture of mine because you made it seem so easy. So if it wasn't for you holding my hand through the whole process of writing an essay to be part of the anthology of the Latinas 100, I probably wouldn't be here right now, celebrating a second publishing.
Yeah.
And that was really like ripping a band-aid, years of trying to figure out how exactly to put into paper my experiences, or what exactly to write about, or how to even begin to express my experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a lot easier to work with you on that process and be able to write a short essay that describes more of a full circle journey of my experience instead of focusing on specific events.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that really was a catalyst to this whole venture. And it was like ripping a band-aid. And then from there I was like, okay, let's do this.
And now
uh,
you're published your own book. Well, one thing that I love about the essay that you wrote for the Latinas 100 book, which she's on page 88 for those of you who wanna buy the book, and you can buy the book directly on her webpage, right? You have them on your webpage, right, or a link to it, so you can buy the book directly from her. She's on page 88, and her essay title is called "Share Your Medicine," which I love. I love that whole title, and I just want to share that I really think that you were really brave to share the story because I mean there's so many details and there's so much that you've gone through, and yet here you are so resilient in publishing your own book. So I commend you for that, number one. And number two, the way that you wrote it is so there is a lot of detail, and then you did go through a lot of trauma, but then you also walk people through like the healing process as well, how you like it's almost like you full circle. So I want to read the first little segment of your essay. So you start with, share your medicine. You say, do not be afraid to reclaim your sovereign space and regain confidence in the development and fulfillment of your divine gifts by releasing everything that no longer serves your higher purpose and trusting the process. For you are here to share your medicine with the world. Okay, so that's the intro to your essay. So you guys can just imagine who everybody who's listening. Um, Love the intro, love the intensity of how you write. Because within the writer's world, there's this expression that we say, it's not really what you write about or what you share, it's the intensity in which you share your story. In your story, anybody who reads it, there is a lot of intensity. It's like you're just going, reading, taking, and then there was a point in your story where I'm like, wow, how did she survive all of that? And you did. Here you are, publishing your book on your own now. Um, and not only have you survived it, not only are you resilient, but then you're also helping people also heal um, and also share. It's almost like your story is a story that helps others heal as well, which is what I love. So there's this beautiful ending to everything that you have gone through. So that's just my take. That's my 2 cents on you, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I
But I
get
love
that.
it. I'm so happy that you participated in the project. What else did you get out of sharing this story?
Oop, you cut off a little bit. Can you
So
repeat?
what else did you get out of sharing this particular story in the book?
Well, first of all, English is my second language. So writing in English, even though well, in the Marine Corps, I used to write for my commanders and stuff like that. And so I got used to writing military style for a while. Um, and then trying to learn my own way of communicating has been a process, but it's intense because I am a very intense person. Everything I do is with intensity, even if I try not to. So I think that intensity comes through in the way I write, because um, I think I write the way I speak or that I communicate with people, and I think that intensity is really what's how do you say it, translated into the way I write.
Yeah, I didn't know
What
that
was your question?
English was. I didn't know that English was your second language. I didn't. I thought you grew up like bilingual. Maybe I wasn't. I guess because you were in Puerto Rico. No, there was a lot of people when I was lived in Puerto Rico. There was a lot of people who were bilingual. So can you share about that? I didn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, I grew up bilingual, but English is technically my second language, because in Puerto Rico, Spanish is the first language. And
Mhm.
so the schools, most of the schools, unless you're in private school or charter schools, I went to public schools. So it was in Spanish the whole time. We would have one English class, just like there's usually just one in Spanish class here in the United States. There's one English class per grade in Puerto Rico.
Uh-huh.
And my mom was born in the United States. However, English was rarely spoken at home.
Okay.
And my English was just horrible growing up. And I remember when I went to boot camp, oh my gosh, that was that was hilarious. I was so lost those first few days because they're speaking English and they're speaking so fast. I'm like, ¿qué? And then they would
Wow.
just come and yell at me and just say all kinds of things. And
Wow.
my
I didn't know that about you because I know that you share a lot in the book, but I didn't know that English was your second language in that sense because that I think that maybe that's why we're so tight and connected because I have the same story where it was only English, Spanish in the house, and I was treated like a second class citizen anywhere I went, even though I was born and raised here. So I think it's a huge part of of your story too, which I'm like I'm I'm glad that you're sharing this because I hadn't heard of that before. I think that and I don't know if you agree, but I think that really is another point of reference, or that's way for another way that we experience America by not speaking English and trying to integrate. Would you agree? Like it's hard. I think it was very difficult for me.
It is hard. It is hard, and all the English classes that I have taken have been very challenging because they really break down my grammar, and then trying to put together, it's like, oh my gosh, because the English grammar is backwards from Spanish grammar. So every time I write something in English, I'm using Spanish grammar. So it sounds very like Yoda. So then I have to break that down and move things around to see exactly how it is that it sounds best. And it's very interesting for me because I tend to be very articulated with my vocabulary and the words I use. So I just always had a thing, at least that my supervisors were always on me about making sure that I was being articulated and that I was delivering the right message. So that was always a fear of mine too, making sure that not only I was writing correctly, but that I was delivering the right message and I wasn't being misunderstood in the way I was, writing or speaking for that matter.
Yeah. Do you think that also affected self-esteem?
Yes, yes, it really did because it held me back. It held me back in many of the things that I could have been doing. And for example, whenever I was giving the opportunity to speak in front of people, I would always turn into a pretzel. Like on a one-on-one, I can always I can talk for days. But when you put a microphone in my hand and I have an audience,
Mhm.
I turn into a pretzel. I forget my words because again, it's that fear that I have to make sure that I'm expressing myself the right way and that the audience is receiving the message the right way.
Mhm. Mhm.
But lately, that's been a lot easier. And I think it's also been able to, well, the whole essay writing was cathartic. I don't think you understand how cathartic that was for me.
Mhm.
When I say that it was a transformation in my life, it really was because it allowed me to open up, speak my truth, right? It allowed me to open up another channel of communication, another method of communicating with people in an authentic way.
Mhm.
And just being able to embody that kind of authenticity allowed me to, exercise the same method in other areas. So now I feel way more confident speaking in front of people because I've been able to kind of just stand in my truth and say that it's not about how perfect it is. It's more about just being authentic in your sovereign space and just speaking your truth and allowing that to come out however it is that needs to come out.
Mhm.
And that was a huge fear for me. And I was like, no, it's not like that. Again, because it was very regimented for many years. It was very structured for many years. It was just so black and white. It needed to make sense. It needed to be logical. But now just being able to stand in my truth and be authentic and just say how it is or how it comes out has been way more illuminating for me than any other time. I've seen the feedback is almost immediate. And it is amazing. It is amazing, and it inspires me to just continue moving forward and continue doing what I want to do and continue delivering the message, continue to share the medicine.
Yeah. And you also won best essay out of the group because we have a private Facebook group in the Latinas 100 community, and you won. Everybody read your essay and everybody decided that you were, for the English version, that you were the number one best essay for the book. So that says a lot también. I think this one in the back, I think you're in the back for best essay. Let's see. Yeah, I think for this one, I want to share for everybody who's listening. Oh, there you are. See? She's the best essay winner. Yay! I love it. I'm telling you, girl, like I do. It's exactly what you're saying. Like there is magic when you show up 100%. There's magic when you share your story. And it really isn't about like you sharing it and making sure that people read it. It's about you just sharing it. Whether people read it or not, it doesn't matter. Another beautiful thing that I since I met you that I've seen with you is you started a group, right, on Facebook where you have your own community as well. And I've seen you kind of like blossom, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And I've noticed that with a lot of the writers that I work with, that they once they show up 100%, whether people read it or not, it doesn't matter. Where you sell the books or not, it doesn't matter. But when you show up 100%, like just magic happens, right? So here we are with your amazing book that you've just launched. And i I believe that maybe within the Latinas 100 project and you writing that one essay kind of like propelled you, right? Like propelled you to say, hey, let me show up in a bigger way and then start writing? Because I really see you publishing more books. So for this one, can you share a little bit with the audience who are listening in? Like, this is more of a workbook. Can you share a little bit more about what you're doing with this workbook and how you're integrating your talents and the work that you do by sharing this work?
So, I have been in therapy since 2008, after I sustained some traumatic brain injuries. And that whole journey of being in and out of therapy and learning different healing modalities was very interesting for me. I've gone through a roller coaster of different styles of therapy and emotions and healing and relapsing.
Mm,
Um, but it wasn't until I actually started to delve more into my spiritual side and taking care of my spiritual needs that that's when really everything else made sense. And that's when I really started healing. It really was a catalyst to my true healing journey. And when I realized that, I just kind of wanted to scream it from the top of the mountains. I just kind of wanted to say, hey, everybody, it's possible. I wanted everybody to feel the joy that I was feeling in my heart, to be able to heal and be able to transform your life and reclaim that power from within. Um, but it wasn't as easy. It wasn't as easy because if you're not ready to receive, you're never going to see it the same way. This is a very personal journey, and you have to be ready to receive that kind of information in order for you to see it.
mhm,
So, it was frustrating because I wanted everyone to know, but nobody was listening. So it felt very lonely.
mhm,
It felt very lonely and where I was, but it didn't deter me from anything. I knew that I still wanted to help other people. I just didn't quite understood how that was going to happen.
mhm,
So I got into different jobs trying to figure out what would be the best way,
mhm,
and I went back to school. So
mhm,
I went back to school to become a health coach because I had become a peer mentor with Wonder Warrior. And then I was an ambassador for Mission Continues, and I was doing other in Aquanaut. So I was doing a lot of other volunteer work, which was extremely rewarding in itself.
mhm,
But I was limited. I was very limited. I wanted to do more, but I was told you can't do that because you're not certified. And I was like,
mhm,
oh damn, like,
mhm,
but I can, I want to. So
mhm,
I was like, okay, no problem. Hold my beer. So I went back to school, or my wine, I should say, hold my wine these days. Um, and I went back to school, and through school, I just started learning so much more
mhm,
through applying the same concepts with myself, through exploring even deeper, through tapping hidden layers. And
mhm.
I like to say, shedding the layers of an artichoke to get to the heart of things.
Yeah. Mm,
And that was very inspirational for me, and I started understanding how to help other people in a way where it wasn't as frustrating. Because before, just me telling people, hey, this works, how about this, how about that, was just not working. So finding the right method that would work for me was tricky. And step one was to embody it. You
mm,
have to establish congruency into what you're teaching. Are you applying it in your life
mhm,
and being an example of it? And I found that that is usually how it works best, when people see that you are living a happy life, that you are living a prosperous life
uh-huh.
authentically. Then that tends to translate better than me just trying to be here preaching stuff to you all day.
Yeah. It's better. Yeah,
And
it's better when you meditate. If you're teaching meditation and you haven't meditated all month,
right.
like you can't teach that, right?
Right. And I had that problem with a lot of teachers and therapists and mentors, do as I say, not as I do.
Hmm.
Um, and that seems to be the disconnect that happens in with most people in most
Yep.
situations.
Yep.
So I really had to go down all the rabbit holes, and I really had to go down through all the different methodologies and try it all before being able to guide people through, guide people through it as well.
Hmm.
I happen to be able to compile the things that worked for me,
Hmm.
the things that helped me be in the state that I am today,
Hmm.
which is a total 180 from where I was just a few years ago. Um, And what I was doing is that I was coaching people through a different type of journal that I was buying separately, and then I was sending them to my clients. And then we, through our coaching sessions, we would kind of just go through the motions with that.
Mhm.
But I would always add and take and move different steps, and it just seemed a little complicated. So talking to you was actually what, the mind blown moment, the light bulb went up when you're like, why don't you just create your own? And I was like, huh, why did I ever think of that? It was just so simple that just a simple suggestion of why don't you just create your own turn into this whole blossoming of opportunities.
Yeah, because a lot of
So
times we don't. I think a lot of times we don't see our own greatness, our own talent, and I think that happens with a lot of us. With us not really acknowledging that, oh yeah, somebody's written this book, but I'm not going to. I could write it. Maybe I can write a similar book because everybody's experience is different. Everybody experiences the life differently. So I think that because there is a huge lack of Latina writers and Latina experiences out there, when I read any of the books that I have on my bookshelf, they're primarily men and they're primarily white men. So when I'm reading those experiences, I can't relate to them. So as you were sharing right now that you were walking your clients through this material that somebody else has written, I think that you had shared who it was or whatnot, but that person has a different view of the world and how they grew up. And your particular story is so unique. It's so different than why don't you write your own workbooks? Why don't you write your own story? Because I can guarantee you there's those very few Latinas that are sharing those kinds of experiences. Okay, because there's already a lack of Latinas being published. So that's why we have the Latinas 100 project, so we can get more Latinas published. But your story is unique and your story is powerful, and it deserves its own platform. Now, when I first started off speaking and coaching, I realized that especially when I was speaking and I was trying out to be on other people's stages, I was rarely being selected. And, I like to believe that I wasn't that terrible. And that's why, that maybe I wasn't being selected because there isn't an audience for Latina speakers. But what I found was that I wasn't going to wait around for somebody to choose me. I wasn't going to wait around for somebody to pick me. I wasn't going to wait around for someone to write that book that maybe I should be writing. And I think that it's the same with you, where you shouldn't wait around to find the book that you need that describes you and your world, because there's millions of women waiting to read this book and listen to your story. And I think that there's this beautiful, like I said earlier, this beautiful blossoming that I've seen in you, and I really see like another 20 books in you, because your story is unique. Your story, the way that you write, is so passionate, and then who you are just as a person, it's like this big personality. I mean, you have this big personality. You have this. I mean, for those of you who don't know you, get to know her through her book, but also know that you really, what I love about you is that you really get into like the real details. Like you really do the research. You really know your practice. Like you're not just a coach. You're like really you're a healer. You're like a true healer. And I mean, you even have, I love these. You even have these. You sell these on your webpage, right? On your site. You have like your own oils and things like that. And you sent me these, and I love. Oh my god! Every time I smell this stuff, I just feel like my whole body. Like every time I before I do a video or I interact with anyone, like I just love to smell it. It just
yes,
gets me in this and just gets me in this mood. And the reason why I bring this up is because I know that you spend a lot of time and research in putting these ingredients together, and you do meditation over everything that you produce, and you do the prayer part, you do the healing part. Like you're the real deal. That's what I say. You're like the real deal. So I feel really fortunate that you showed up in my world, and then I get to be part of your world, and feel really fortunate that even if it was for a little, in the little piece that at the Latinas 100 project we had something to do this process of getting you published and getting your story and getting you out there to let people know your awesomeness. So I want to thank you for that. And there's not a question. I mean, I don't have a question for you about that. I'm just making a statement that if you haven't, for those of you watching, if you haven't already gone on her webpage, the link is below, or had an opportunity to read or to buy her workbook and see her videos. Do you have videos online right now on your webpage?
No, not yet right now. I am in the process of recording a workshop on how to use the journal, because it's really a few steps. And what it is that mastering alchemy for me, when I started getting into cognitive behavioral coaching, was after going through cognitive behavioral therapy myself for like 4 different times.
Uh huh.
Um, and for me, cognitive behavioral therapy was amazing. The first time it didn't quite make as much sense, but the other times that I did it, depending on what provider it was, each provider has their own different style. And I would always set an intention for each different time, because I'm not one to just jump on things without an intention. I'd like
Mm-hmm.
to live my life purposefully and with an intention.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would always dive deeper on something. If something was bothering me, then I would set the intention before going into that type of therapy. The same with DBT. But with cognitive behavioral therapy, was really life changing, because it brought a lot of concepts to my life that I wasn't aware of before, and many of us are not aware of, or we hear about it, and but we don't really have the time to consider if how it would apply really in our lives, or how we can use those to make changes in our lives. And that's what cognitive behavioral therapy did for me. So I got into cognitive behavioral coaching because I wanted to learn more about the ins and outs of it.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started really getting really good at cognitive behavioral coaching and applying it to my own life, I realized that a lot of my emotions, because I used to be a very angry person, I used to have just so much anger in my heart and so much resentment and grief and shame. And I was extremely irritable, and I hated people. I hated everybody equally. And no matter, I used to get triggered all the time. And then it would fester, that anger in my body, it would stay in there, and it would fester, and it would cause all kinds of ailments and pain. And I just never had a chance to really process it out or find an outlet that was healthy. So I was drinking heavily and self-medicating to try to escape that kind of reality and that depression. But once I started applying, CBT into my life, and I started learning the different processes and the value system and commitments and all of that, I started doing the process little by little, and I started noticing that I wouldn't linger too much with the emotions. The emotions wouldn't be affecting me as much.
Mm-hmm.
And what would take me maybe months or years, months or weeks to work on would take a lot less. It would take maybe a few days,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes just one day, or sometimes just a few hours. So what something would be bothering me for a long time, through cognitive behavioral therapy, I was able to turn that into something that I could use for good.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that that is the process of alchemy. That is the process of the law of transmutation, which is one of the universal laws.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm an alchemist. This is what alchemy is.
Mm-hmm.
The ability, the art of transmutation, the ability to turn something, energy, into something else almost instantly.
Mm. I love that.
I started seeing things that way. So then that it really helped me even more, because I could talk to some people, and if something happened, I would be like doing the process in my head in just a few seconds, and boom, I'm not bothered anymore. I'm good. I was able to process it and let go healthy,
Mm-hmm.
instead of bottling it up, or having it, bother my sleep or cause any anxiety or
Mm-hmm.
any stress. And and I started calling that removing my buttons so people don't push them. So every time before I leave my house
Mm, my
in the
button.
morning, I say I remove my buttons so people don't push them. The
I love
only button
that.
The only button I wear is my Zen button. So whenever somebody tells me something or somebody cuts me off or whatever that would have triggered me before, I just kind of go like, go through my little process in my mind, take a deep breath, release, and then push that little Zen button.
Oh, I love it. Because I know you're working on your master's, right? So you're getting your master's on what?
In mind body medicine.
Mind body medicine. Okay. And then I'm assuming that you're integrating a lot of what you're learning in your master's program in the book as well, no?
Yes, a lot of what I'm learning, it's reflected in this book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a workbook, but it's really a journal. What I'm trying to share with everyone is what has worked for me. What has worked for me in understanding, acknowledging, and honoring how I feel, because we've been taught to deny the way we feel. We've been taught to deny the way that we act and we perceive, because we're not really taught emotional intelligence as much as we should from an early age.
Yeah.
So as soon as life hits, we're just overwhelmed with a lot of things, and we rarely get a chance to acknowledge our emotions, good and bad, and then we're taught to only celebrate the good, but we're not taught that feeling angry is okay and feeling irritable it's okay. It's just a matter of acknowledging what it is, and then processing it and then moving forward, instead of, the more you deny these things, then the more you are bottling them up, and they manifest in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
um, and usually not in a good way, and they cause a myriad of health issues, just as
Mm-hmm.
like stress. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people cause themselves heart attacks because of the stress they feel, stress that could be avoided if they just take the time to acknowledge what it is that they're feeling, even if it's just for 5 to 10 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sharing with everybody the process of how I've been able to process my own stressors and traumatic experiences and relieve a lot of the symptoms, because I used to have migraines daily, and I used to have debilitating symptoms where I wouldn't be able to drive or even leave my house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very simple process of acknowledging your emotions, and then establishing yourself some intentions and inspired action, and then following through. Because what's important is that, let's use anger for an example. If you're feeling very angry, that's okay. But if it's a toxic thing that you acknowledge that it's a toxic trait in your life and you want to change it, then you have to have replace it with an activity that is just this, that is at the same frequency, for example,
Mm-hmm.
something that is just as violent, so that it helps you to kind of exert that energy. And I like to use jujitsu as an example, or any other form of high intensity martial arts, because it's at the same frequency of anger. You are exerting the same kind of energy out. But the difference is that most martial arts are based on discipline and an honor code system.
Mm-hmm.
A sensei or a master will teach you never to use your power to harm anybody. They teach you to apply those for defense instead of offense, and to kind of channel that out of your body, and then find that Zen within.
Mm-hmm.
So that is just one example of transmutation, exerting one kind of energy into another one that is useful for you and
Mm-hmm.
something that you look forward to.
Yeah.
And at the same time, that energy is not stagnant in your body because you are physically exerting it out.
Mm-hmm.
And if jujitsu is not your jam after a while, I've seen a lot of my friends start adopting different kinds of martial arts that are not as high intensity. They do Tai Chi, or they do other forms of martial arts, just to kind of wean off that adrenaline rush or that craving of that intensity in your life.
Yeah, I do qigong. So qigong has been really helpful for me, um, and yeah, it's calming. It's very calming just to, but it's so powerful though. Like you would think that the movements would would just be like, oh, she's so zenned out, but no, like the qigong movements are like super power. Like you're really converting energy, and you're almost like I don't like the word manipulation, but you're almost like the energy is tangible, like the energy, you can really move the energy if you pay attention. It's really cool. It's a really cool martial arts.
You are channeling it because you are an energetic body first,
Hmm.
physical body second. So that's the main thing, acknowledging that we are energetic beings first. And what you're doing through Tai Chi, Qigong, or even Reiki, it's learning how to acknowledge the energy, your electromagnetic field around you, your auric body, and then channeling the energy around it. And for example, at least with Reiki and Qigong, you connect to the universal energy and you move it through your body and out of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And you continue through that motion, and you are just working with your own energy and connecting to source and just kind of cleansing that energy out of you, any stagnant energy that either was there from someone else or even from your own stressors. So yes, essentially that's another form of transmutation, because you are turning some one form of energy into another.
I love it. I love it. You have so much wisdom. I just love talking to you. I could talk to you forever. What is one thing to just to wrap it up? What is one thing that you want the listeners to know about your new book, and how can people find you?
Wow, well, that's a tough question, because just one thing, it's really hard. But I think the main thing that I'd like people to understand and know and learn is that you are a very powerful being, and no one can take that away from you.
Mm-hmm.
But by you saying, you made me feel, you are giving your power away to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledging that no one makes you feel anything. You feel.
Mm-hmm.
So reclaiming that power within yourself and then controlling that, learning how to control that, it's a power that we all hold, because we
Mm-hmm.
are all alchemists and we are all powerful beings. So learning how to cultivate that power from within,
Mm-hmm.
it's really the secret to living your best life and manifesting everything that you want to manifest in your life. Um, I think that a lot of us tend to forget that in our lives, and so we become a victim of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that this journal, through the different process and steps that I have included in it, helps people understand and work on how to cultivate and harness that power from within, so that they regain control over their lives.
Oh, I love it. That's so powerful. I love that you shared that, because for many, many years I've believed that. That's one life truth that I learned at a young age that liberated me from the slavery of believing that other people control my emotions. And so I love that you're bringing it up. I love that it's part of what you teach. I love that not only are you wise as heck, but that you've got all the degrees and certifications behind you, which is lovely. Um, but I really believe in my heart that even if you didn't have all those degrees and all that training, that you would still be wise, because it's almost like you have this knowing, this truth. Ever since I met you, you just exert this understanding of the world that is really deep and that is really healing. So I want to thank you for joining me here in 100 Authors 100 Days. I appreciate you. I love you so much. I'm so so grateful that I got to meet you, and that you got to be part of the Latinas 100 book. And then now you're with your wings flying on your own, launching your books, and I'm so proud of you and so happy that I know you. And you've been a blessing in my life, and I want to thank you for that. So
Thank you so much, Adriana. Honestly, I'm the one who's eternally grateful for you. And I made a beautiful dedication to you on my book,
thank
because if
you.
it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't have been able to sit down and make this a reality. So thank you for all the light that you bring to the world and all the help that you have provided to all of us, and making, our dream, one of our dreams, a reality. This is really a dream come true. And I want to thank you for the opportunity and your friendship. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, I will see everybody soon. And again, if you want to get a hold of Karen, just take a look at the link below, and it'll be a link to her new book, and then also her webpage. She has a lot of cool stuff on her webpage, and get to know her. And you do one on one coaching, right? So you can do one on one coaching as well. And I know that she's doing workshops all over the country. So check her out, check out her work. I will talk to you guys all soon.